All right. Ready to go? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Terry. I'm one of the orchard keepers. Ingrid is also one of the orchard keepers, and Alex down there on directing everything for us here is another one of the orchard keepers, and Johan is not here at the moment, but he's our fourth member. We've taken over the lease of the orchard here starting from July. We've taken over from a previous leaseholder, and Wilson, and before then leased the orchard off Katie and Hugh, who have been here for 20 years plus, at least running it more. And then Katie grew up here as well, and this orchard's been run by her and her family for about decades, 50s. So we're starting here very fresh and learning a lot, but we're lucky because we've got the collective memory and experience of, if you add it all up, it's hundreds of years probably we're learning. Okay, we're part of the Harcourt Organic Farming Co-op. Orchard keepers are, also gung ho growers are. Tessa Sellers Dairy next door, Carr's Organic Fruit Nursery, and Growing Grapefruit that Katie and Hugh run as an online educational fruit growing, I don't know, font of wisdom. Okay, that's basically us as an intro. And I'd like to also acknowledge that we're on Dja Dja Wurrung country, and that people here have been growing and eating food and enjoying food and living well under the sites of Leanganuk for as long as anyone can remember. And I'd like to assert that we're on stolen land, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And we're very lucky to be here and continue in that, I don't know, that kind of world and that way of living as much as we can do. I might leave it there, shall I?
Yeah, that's
okay,
great.
Thanks. I'll hand over to Ingrid, who will introduce, I guess, the workshop, Fruit Flies.
Cool. Thanks. Hi everyone. We've got 20 people in the shed here today, so that was the maximum number of people that we could have, COVID safe. And I'm not sure how many people have tuned in on Zoom, but quite a big audience in total, which is great because it is a really important topic. And as Terry said, we're on a really pretty steep learning curve, and one of the things that we're getting our heads around is fruit fly, and it was found on this property for the first time last year and in Harcourt last year as well. And I came across it in Castlemaine and my neighbour's tree, a tree that I'd picked from for years. And then I noticed the pinpricks, and yeah, this late season peach tree had a lot of fruit fly in it. So it's a bit of a shock when you first come across it. So Ant, our predecessor, has developed a protocol and put some things in place on the orchard. But so we've been getting advice from Elizabeth and from Colin and from Katie and Hugh, so that we're kind of trying to be ahead of the game, I guess. And one thing Colin said to me on the phone was, what did you say, Colin? If no one else is involved, forget about it. So we just really need the whole community, I guess, to come on board and be aware of fruit fly. So that's why we've had running this workshop, so that others can learn alongside with us. And it's kind of been on our doorstep for a while, but now that it's here, I think it has upped the ante a bit. And I've seen those Queensland Fruit Fly brochures around maybe 4 years ago or something. And to be honest, I never picked one up, but now I've suddenly become very interested. Nothing like taking on an orchard to up the ante on that. But so we're going to hear from 3 speakers today. And I should also say that Harcourt Valley Landcare have provided some financial sponsorship for this event, and also the Harcourt Corps helped out with just some advertising too, which was really great. And I'd just like to thank Colin, Elizabeth and Terry Willis, who will be here soon. Hey Terry. Just for enthusiastically taking up the invitation to come and talk to us and share their knowledge. So we're going to hear from Colin, who's travelled first. He's travelled from Ocean Grove today. Colin is the inventor of the Biotrap, the fruit fly traps that you will see around the orchard. He's also the business owner of Biotraps Australia. He's been involved in fruit fly research and education for a long time. You might be able to tell people a bit more about that. Then we're going to hear from Elizabeth Mace. Elizabeth is the Deputy Chair of Fruit Growers Victoria, and she is also a field officer for Goulburn Valley Crop Supplies in Shepparton. So she's been providing advice to farmers in the Goulburn Valley for maybe 8 years since fruit fly has been an issue over there. And then Terry Willis is a local who's been very aware that fruit fly has been on our doorstep, and he has started the Harcourt Valley Fruit Fly Action Plan. So that's a document that is in place, and he's been doing a lot of community education, volunteer work on trying to prevent fruit fly becoming an issue here for a long time. So so we've got 3 speakers, they'll each talk for 20 minutes, and then we'll have 10 minutes of questions at the end, and then we'll say goodbye to our Zoom audience, and then we'll have afternoon tea and break out into our work group so we can make the most of having these guys with us today. Okay, I'll hand over to you, Colin. Thanks.
Thanks, Ingrid, and thanks very much for the people that organised this function. They've done a really good job under these difficult times. Well done. A little bit of background about myself. I retired 15 years ago, and I was given the opportunity to do some work for a Spanish company who had developed a fruit fly attractant. And after completing that work for them, which took about 4 years, one thing led to another, and I recognised that there was a need to develop some alternative products out there for the fruit fly that was, well, at that time, this is going back 15 years, it really only started in the Goulburn Valley and the Mildura area because that was a fruit fly free area. But at that time, we had a very effective insecticide called Mace, which was then taken off the market, and many of the growers and backyard people thought that was going to be the end of controlling fruit fly. Well, we have moved on, and we've developed some, well, better products and better systems to manage this pest. We can't control it. We really can't. It's a management issue, and you just got to keep on year after year, and that's what we've got to do. And this area here is quite unique at this stage. You're surrounded by fruit fly. It's not on your doorstep. You're surrounded by it. You've got fruit fly in Melbourne, you've got fruit fly in Bendigo, and in quite large numbers. And hopefully you can keep it that way. I really do, because it's, as Elizabeth will talk about the Goulburn Valley experience, it really is a pest that requires constant surveillance and constant management. I'm going to run through a PowerPoint presentation so we can get an idea of what we're dealing with in this test. Oh, wrong way. Well, there's 270 fruit fly species in Australia, and about 80 of which attack fruit, 7 of which are considered commercial pests. But the main ones that we're dealing with is medfly in West Australia, which is an introduced species, and Queensland fruit fly on the eastern part of Australia. And Queensland fruit fly is a native pest, but has certainly found a home in this part of the world as well. In South Australia, which is still fruit fly free, they've got medfly incursions in Adelaide, and Queensland fruit fly in the Riverland area, so they're really battling the situation there. The distribution of fruit fly, well, that map has probably changed since this was done. We've got fruit fly right down the east coast of Australia and running right up to the South Australian border, and then the medfly incursions in Western Australia. Now, the life cycle, it's important to understand the life cycle because this has an influence on how you actually control the pest. Queensland Fruit Fly, which we're talking about today, it overwinters as an adult. It doesn't overwinter in any other form, it overwinters as an adult. It finds a warm place to hunker down over winter. And then when the weather starts to warm up, it'll come out and forage for food. And that's generally sort of late August, September period. There's no fruit, well, in this region, of course, there's no fruit around for that time. So they're really only foraging for food. They're being active at that time. They really don't mate at that time either until the weather warms up. So it's about 5 days before they'll mate, and then the eggs are laid just under the skin of the fruit. The eggs carry a bacteria that enables or rots the fruit, which allows then the maggot that's developed from the egg to consume this rotting fruit. And it goes through a series of change, or the larvae or the maggot goes through a series of changes over about a 5 to 6 day period. And then the fruit at that time, it will mature and prematurely and possibly drop on the ground, where the maggot will burrow out and then burrow into the soil or the litter under the tree. And it forms a pupae case around it, and that pupae case then protects it from the elements. It'll stay in that stage for, I'm not sure actually, I think it's up to about 40 days actually in the pupae stage. And if the weather conditions are right, then it'll come out. Weather conditions being right, of course, in the temperature and the moisture conditions, it will then come out as an immature fly. It will take 2 or 3 days to acclimatise before it then will forage for food, and then it will repeat the life cycle, will mate and so forth. The male fly, how you identify the difference between the male and the female. The female has a stinger, an ovipositor on the abdomen, on the back of the fly there. They're both about approximately the same. The Queensland Fruit Fly is easily identifiable by the yellow patches on the side. It's quite distinctive. There's a trap over there with some flies, dead flies in it. That yes.
Would you be happy to share these slides with people after the workshop, Colin?
Well, yes, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure they won't mind.
Right, no worries.
Yeah. So you can see how big these flies are. They're 3 or 4 millimeters in length, but they're quite distinctive. The males gather together at dusk and form a group where they release a pheromone to attract the females. Now, mating takes place in the evening when the temperature's around 19 degrees, as it says there. Now, the interesting statement which is underlined there is that both male and females need a minimum of 5 days after leaving their pupal case to reach sexual maturity, provided both sexes have fed on a protein source. Now, that's relevant in later slides, right? That protein sources, this year there's going to be a lot of protein sources around because of the weather conditions, and it's fungi and dead insects and so forth. So, you know, they're naturally occurring protein sources. We can substitute those protein sources with alternative materials where we can control the pest. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So fruit flies in an orchard situation, they like warm places. They, as I said, they mate in the evening, but they feed in the morning. They're very active in the morning when the temperature is around 13 degrees. They're looking for food. They're also looking for places to lay their eggs at that time. So they really look for a warm place, and particularly for overwintering. And this is one of the issues that we have, and I was talking to someone about this morning, about this Harcourt area. One of the I suppose, benefits in a way that you don't have a large urban population in this area. It's a fairly extensive fruiting area, but you take Shepparton and Cobram and Mildura areas, they've got fairly large urban areas. And this is a major issue because fruit flies overwinter in the urban areas because you've got heated houses and it's just a perfect environment for them. Here in the Harcourt area, you don't have that extensive urban area. Of course, there are some, but it's not a major sort of urban area. Okay, how many fertile offspring can produce in the lab? Well, the female fly can produce up to 2,000 eggs in its lifetime. Of course, 50% of those will be male and 50% females. Now, a generation egg takes 22 to 70 days. Now, as I explained, the life cycle of the fruit fly takes around 3 weeks to 6 weeks. Now, you'll get several generations occurring in a year. At this time, in this part of the world, the females are starting to become active, the males are becoming active, the mating will occur. The first fruits that will become available will be our locusts, and so that will be a generation from there. In a normal season in this part of the world, you'll get 2 to 3 generations. In the northern parts, you probably get up to 4 or 5 generations, and that, of course, builds the numbers up. It's a numbers game. Sorry?
Oh, sorry, we're doing questions later. No worries.
Yes, that's all right. So as you can see by the numbers there, total number of flies of one female is to 64 million flies. It sort of, if you sort of do the math. So it's an awful lot of flies. What do we know about? Well, we know a fair bit about Queensland fruit fly, but there's a lot of things that we don't know about it as well. Well, we've been studying Queensland fruit fly for a number of years. There's been a lot of money put towards research in this country on Queensland fruit fly. And I should say that Queensland fruit fly is unique. It's a unique species to Australia, although there are some islands around that have where it's been established as well. It's a summer pest. Even in Queensland, it overwinters. There was some research done by researchers at the Bowen Research Institute, where they were monitored over a period of a 12-month period, and during sort of late April to when was it, early August, it just disappeared, and you know, just it overwintered there as well. So it overwinters in Queensland like as it does down here. They're polyphagous, so fruit flies are considered the world's #1 pest, in that because, particularly the polyphagous species, because polyphagous means that they have multiple hosts. The opposite of that is monophagous fruit flies, which is like an olive fly or a cucumber fly. They're specific hosts. And interestingly, the polyphagous bee, like Queensland fruit fly, attacks such a range of fruits, and this is why it is such a major problem from blackberries to apples to pears to peaches. Of course, they do have preferences, of course, and the stone fruit are high priority and over sort of green apples, but you know, the red apples they really like. Well, and they can travel long distances. Well, this is a fairly controversial sort of statement. We're not real sure actually how far they do travel, but we do know one thing is that weather conditions do assist in how far they'll travel, and the conditions that we're experiencing this year, which is warm, hot, moist days, they will travel a lot further. There's no question about that, because they're more active. They can go from tree to tree and so forth. So because there's moisture available. Under dry conditions, they really don't move that far. So yeah, so this year is going to be one of those high pressure years. So some control or management techniques, baits. I mentioned before about protein. Protein baits have been around for 50 odd years or more. It's a proven way of controlling and managing the pest, in that you mix up an insecticide, whether it be an organic insecticide or insecticide, with a bait and spray it out, or you put it into a trap and attract the fruit fly into the trap. But they're because the fruit fly, both the male and female, in an immature state requires a protein. The female fly requires additional protein feeding to produce eggs. So protein is an excellent way of attracting the fruit fly, controlling or managing the numbers. And there's just some examples of some protein. Well, you have the bait sprays and commercial orchards, and some for home garden use as well. So male traps, the Queensland fruit fly is attracted to a parapheromone, which is called Q lure. Q lure hydrolyzes, which means that it reacts with moisture to produce a raspberry ketone, which is what attracts the male fly. It requires this pheromone to produce a pheromone, if you like. And it's highly effective. It's very selective, which makes it an ideal monitoring system. That so what you get in, they put a male lure into a trap, sorry, a Q lure into the trap, you'll get Queensland male flies in that trap, 90% basically. So it's a great way to monitor for activity. Put your male traps out early, see when the activity starts, and then go to plan B, which is then looking at how you're going to control sort of the fruit flies from that point on. Just some examples of male trap. The first one there is what they call a Steiner trap, which is used in the northern part of Australia because it's a greater weather protection, if you like. The Biotrap, which is an early model that I developed, a Delta trap, which is quite used extensively. The fourth one there is a Australian Linfield trap, which is used by the Australian governments around Australia for their monitoring for fruit fly for export requirements. The fifth one is a New Zealand Linfield trap, and the fourth one is a Spanish trap, a Probidol trap. But look, they all work. Some work better than others. That's all. The interesting thing about traps is that it's not how good they attract the flies so much, it's how well you keep the flies in the trap. You know, I was given, a company in India sent me some traps to trial out. They said that we didn't need an insecticide. They were very good at keeping the flies in the trap. But there was only one problem: the flies couldn't find their way into the trap. Female bias traps, well, probably that's not, that should be lures, I suppose, female bias lures, because although the first one there, the fruition sticky trap, which is not used in Victoria now because of the new legislation requiring traps to have a cage around them.
I've just got a note saying that so I can watch it later.
The lure on
Right. Okay. Well, I don't mind if we sit here then.
No, I can watch it for a little while then.
I'm not sure really how effective it was, to be honest, because the problem with it is that if you use a lure with ripening fruit odors, when the fruit is ripening, I'm pretty sure the insect's going to be more likely to go to the fruit than the trap. And blue as well. Yeah, well, anyway, the Sarah trap works really well. That was the product that I started working on actually those 15 odd years ago, and that's actually my design, the trap there. It's a Spanish product and it works very well. The only problem is it's a liquid, flies go into it, drown in it, and it becomes very mucky and mesh, and so it's very difficult to identify really what you've got in the trap, and it dries out fairly quickly in hot weather. And the third one is the Biotrap gel, which is what I developed like about 10 years or so ago. And that works and works quite well, but they're still, but really they work better if you can put a lot of them out in a mass trapping situation. In an urban environment, you know, you catch flies, but you know, they'll just fly over the fence and sting your fruit before they go into the trap anyway. There's some homemade products that you can develop, which is based on Vegemite and orange juice and honey and all these sort of recipes. They all work, but you have to replace them on a more regular basis because they tend to go off very quickly. How are we going for time? I haven't been watching.
A couple more minutes of talking and then we'll have questions.
All right, okay, I'll hurry up,
No, you're going okay. Yeah.
I'm going okay, all right, okay. Some work that was done just on comparing some traps to, you know, to ensure that they're the best. Making baits and traps work best. Timing and placement, of course, you're better to put traps within the foliage. Here, you put them on the northeastern side. For male trapping, you can place them 300 meters away because the male pheromone is very attractive, as I said, and will attract them from some distance away. Female bias traps are not so attractive, sort of, getting them from a long distance. They're more sort of very immediate, like about 15 meters. So in a backyard situation, you probably only need one male trap to say 2 or 3 female bias traps, if you like. I should mention about baiting as well. Baiting, if you're using the Naturalure type, which is a spinosad, a bait plus a spinosad. Spinosad is a organic insecticide. The problem with spinosad is that it's a good insecticide, but it's very slow in killing the insect, and like 2 to 3 days. And in that time, they'll still lay eggs during that time. So the bait is very effective at attracting fruit flies, but the insecticide is very slow at killing the insect. So quite often you get more stings than you did if you didn't use it. And that's been a common complaint about those sort of things. Putting female bias traps into fruiting trees is also an issue, in that what you're going to be doing is going to be attracting fruit flies into those fruiting trees. So you're better to place them around the boundary because that's where the flies will be coming from, and not necessarily into a fruiting tree as such. As I said earlier, they're active in the morning, so you want to place the traps where the morning sun is, not sort of in the afternoon, because it won't do anything. It's just they'll be too hot. Netting is highly effective for backyards. It's the only way to control your fruit flies if you want to control it. You can, if you're very, you can manage fruit flies in the backyard if you are aware of, if any fruit drops, pick it up. If you look at stings and so forth, and pick your fruit green and so forth, you can manage it that way. But netting is really the 100% surefire way of doing it. Hygiene, very important. As I mentioned, you know, look at the fruit, pick the fruit up, you know, put it in the microwave. My sister, which she has a property out the other side of Seymour, she got some fruit, some quinces, I think it was, from a local market, took them home, opened them up, they were all rotten, threw them out into the compost bin. Mm-hmm. Worst thing you can do, of course, you know, and then she had fruit fly. Well, and that's, you know, quite a common story, actually. Right, managing fruit flies in the home garden. Install a male trap late August, early September, and check it regularly. I love this sign up here. Fridays, check it. They put that up there for me. Thank you very much. When fruit flies, install a female bias trap and/or netting. Okay, that's your plan B. Exercise correct hybrid. Manage fruit flies in the home garden are very difficult, particularly in urban areas. It is because they don't recognise boundaries. You're going to fly over, and of course you're not going to get everybody on board to be, you know, doing the right thing, and that's the problem. In some areas where we've done mass trapping and so forth, it works really well. But as I said, get everybody on board, and that's what we're trying to do today, is get the message out there, get people to do the right thing. just, I'll finish. Okay, I'm finished. Thank you very much. That's it. All right. That's all right. Okay.
Thanks, Colin. That's a great start.
Thank
So
you.
much info to take in. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So much info to take in. So we'll take any questions coming from the Zoom, Alex? Zoom people? I have lots of questions.
Oh.
Does anyone have any questions here for Colin? Yeah. Mel?
I know, so I don't grow fruit, I grow veggies here on the property, so I know tomatoes, eggplants.
Well, this is your veggies out here.
Yeah, some of them, and then there's more down there.
Well done.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So in terms of height and in fall, and so I'm aware that it started in the foliage, but in terms of height, is there a specific height on the borders that we should put traps?
Yeah, well, preferably higher up the better. Fruit flies will go up into the tree. When they come from the pupae stage, they'll come up, they'll crawl up because they're really developing at that stage. And if you have protein traps out and so forth out at that stage, they need to be at least sort of that high, basically, the head high type of thing. But the higher, the better, actually.
So like here.
Well, there, yeah, that's right. Yeah, there, perfect. Yeah. Because if you're bait spraying, where you want to put your bait spray is about that 1/3 height of the tree. So if it's if it's 9 meters high, you want to be at sort of the 3 meter sort of level.
Yeah, so it makes me veggies, they're not as high as a tree.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the issue with vegetables like tomatoes and what else is it? Capsicums, chilies, they love. Eggplant, they love it, right? The problem there is that the fruit fly flies in and out. It doesn't actually stay there because they're too low. So they'll fly in and out there. You're unlikely to catch them in those areas, actually. They'll be out there. In Queensland, they did some research on strawberries, and they found that by putting cane grass or these higher things up and putting the traps in there was a better, gave them a result.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
really cool. That's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Colin,
Yes, sir.
I will just take one for our Zoom audience, and when you respond, can you repeat the question back? But they just wanted to know about, so if you only need male traps, or if you need male and females, and if biotraps work for females as well.
Right. Okay. The question was, will only male trap? Do I only need a male trap, or do I need both a male trap and a female trap? And does the biotrap work for both? Yes, the trap's been designed for both applications, but they're two different lures, and you don't combine the lures at the one time. You have to keep them separate. You put a male lure into a trap, or you put the female lure in a trap. You don't combine them together. You put the male traps out first. But male traps are only for monitoring for activity and for numbers. They don't control the problem. So, you only really need one male trap as I said, a tractor up to 300 meters away. So, you'll put a male trap in your backyard. It's not necessarily coming from your backyard. They might be coming from, right up the street. We did some work in Temora, actually, where we did a sort of grid system, and we found that it was one specific tree in an area where the fruit fly were. So you can actually narrow the grid down to identify exactly where the fruit flies are.
Colin, you said August, September, and it's now October. So from that last answer you gave, do I assume now we should be putting female traps out because it's later?
Yeah, this year's been a funny year though. Like, we've had cold weather and the activity is, sorry?
Can you repeat your question?
The question was, it's now October, and I said that you should have traps out late August, September, which is true. This year has been an unusual year. We've had hot and cold weather and so forth. The males are now active. I did some trapping trials in Shepparton the other day, and overnight, next morning I was catching flies. So they are active now. They're certainly active in Bendigo. There's been reports of flies in Bendigo. So whether you put female traps out now, it's probably a little bit early in that your fruit. Normally, female traps is, although, you know, put them out now because you'll be catching those immature flies or the flies that are coming out over wintering. But if you're looking from a cropping point of view, the normal suggestion, thing to do would be to put them out 6 weeks prior to fruit ripening. So it's probably a little bit early, except the locusts, which should be sort of ripening fairly soon.
Yeah, we can take one more question maybe from Katie.
Oh, I've got so many questions.
I know, but Colin will be here for the workshop still, so.
Oh,
yeah.
all right, so my only one, I'll just follow on then from that one. You said before that you only need one male for every 300 metres or something. If you've got a normal suburban backyard and you're trying to have enough female traps to actually make a difference and you're catching up, how many, what's your grid?
Well, interestingly, we did, going back a few years now, we were doing some mass trapping work in the Swan Hill and so forth area, and it was really quite fascinating. We were also monitoring the activity of that mass trapping. We're using the female bias gel, and we were putting 2 traps in a normal standard backyard. When you work that out, I think we worked it out, it was about 80 traps per hectare, which is sort of about the sort of standard rate that you'd use in a commercial orchard situation. Because if you take the building out and the roads and sort of thing, we found some blocks, the quarter-acre blocks, they only still put 2 traps out that didn't work. We got fruit fly numbers, so we had to go back to those areas and put additional traps out. So it's really it's how big an area you're trying to treat. So if you've got a standard block, I'm going to say 2 traps, but a larger block will depend. You know, you need to put more traps out. You don't need to put more male traps out because it's just not going to do anything. It's just going to identify that you've got flies. That's all. All right.
Thank you, Colin. Thanks so much, Colin. There's so many more questions, but we've all got Colin after the Zoom people, but I guess we can just keep a note of all of the Zoom questions.
I'm going to get Colin to come and sit here.
Oh, amazing. Oh, okay.
I didn't know that yet.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll just, Elizabeth Mace is going to come and talk to us and give us some context of what's been going on in Shepparton, and hopefully we can learn from their experience. Yeah, thank you. You don't have to wear your mask now. Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth.
Want your slide shut up?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. Oh,
I'll start super quick. Thank you, Terry, for that beautiful acknowledgement to country. And I grew up on Watch a Bullet land, and I'm a Watch a Bullet girl, so thank you. We do appreciate those types of things.
There's the
Awesome.
page up, page down.
Okay, let's go. My name's Elizabeth Mace. No, that's not it. Oh, I see here. The format sort of changed. It's got a little spiel about me in white, sadly. That's fine. I can tell you. I hope I don't get bogged down in the details on you guys, because I do that. So I am Deputy Chair for Fruit Growers Victoria. This is my 3rd term with them. I'm the 2nd woman to hold that position, so I'm really proud of that. I've got a few different portfolios, but one of them is biosecurity and integrated pest and disease management. So this is an issue that's very close to my heart, and I do love it. I am also a field technician for GV Crop Protection, which is a chemical on-selling company in Shepparton. And it's very interesting because I am IPDM, I'm minimising sprays, and I do work for a chemical company. So the duality. Let's go across. So 2013 is when I started with GV Crop Protection, and that was when fruit fly first raised its head. So it was very interesting, and that's when I was lucky enough to first meet Colin too. It was very interesting. There was a lot of misinformation, and there was not much information on the ground because, as Colin said, I hope that our works complement each other here. As Colin said, the farmers thought that there was, for export, we only had to do 2 sprays.
So a spray at the beginning of spring and a spray just towards harvest, and that was the job done. And so farmers were under this misconception that it actually overwintered in the ground. Yay, wasn't that a surprise for us? So, we were playing some, and as I said, we were, and even advisors, I was only brand new then, so still quite unjaded. It's changed. So, and there was still a lot of misinformation around. So we were playing some severe catch up because we've got a massive fruit growing population. And we've also got 60,000 people in one community, 120,000 people in the region, there's 60,000 in the urban community. So it was interesting. And so we had some experienced researchers and advisors, and that's again where we met Colin and people like Andrew Jessup, Stephen Tancred. They came down to the Goulburn Valley from their various places and they gave us some intense one-on-one information, which blew everybody's mind. As I said, I was still kind of fresh and unjaded. And Colin was doing some trial work. So I jumped in on that because it's a beautiful, complex beast. It really is. I mean, as much as it's a pain, it's awesome. Through that and with the industry bodies like Fruit Growers Victoria and some lobbying that was done with the department and a good, strong fruit growing community with their voice, some action groups were started. And it took some time to find their way and to get everything and everybody on the same page. And of course, there's egos flying around, mine too. And so the aims of the action group across the Goulburn Valley took a couple of years, but they started to get realised, which made such a difference to the pressures in the community and into the growing community, because the urban community were then able to understand the pressures that we were under and to assist and help. It wasn't a silver bullet, never is. And we were still trialling effective control measures on farm. Not with trapping and not with anything else. That was just effective control measures on farm in a practical sense, because there's lots and lots of information around there, but putting it into action is sometimes different. And as an IPDM tech, our IPDM systems were pressured. They were put, it was other IPDM techs with me, basically said, just kick it out the window. That's it, see you IPDM.
Lots of people
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, as I said, don't let me get bogged down in the details. So that's another day. IPDM is an acronym for Integrated Pest Disease Management. And now in Australia, we're very lazy. We just say IPM, but there's many, many facets to it. So Integrated Pest Disease Management is about using biorational chemical controls, which is the right chemical with the least impact. There's a couple of tiers to it. So the first tier one is cultural practices. That's the easiest for us to do. And in doing that, we're talking about and let's put it back into the fruit fly sense, we're talking about hygiene. We're talking about open canopies. We're talking about plant selection. Even when you're talking about a vegetable, you're talking about plant selection. So, there's cultural practices. And then we have a predatory the biological control, which is either a fungal, a virus, or the predatory aspect, which is our favourite, predatory, because we get to watch bugs eat each other. And then we go to the chemical control, which is inevitable in a production horticulture system. It's inevitable. Whether even in an organic production horticulture system, eventually it becomes inevitable. But going back to that biorational choice, that's where we the IPDM people come into their, that's how we justify our existence. I'll move along. Okay, where am I up to? Here. So a sample plan that, a little bit of trial and error over the few years that we've had fruit fly. And so this is a sample plan that is pretty generally used, I'd say. And the variables in here is the weather. It's the weather. But so we're looking at prevention. And this slide will be available. You're more than welcome to have this. It was built for you guys. So we're looking at prevention. And then there's all these different lifestyle plant stages. I can go through it all if you want. So we're looking at, clean the orchard floor. Over winter, we do have, if the fruit is not all removed, we do have fruit left. And that gives it the algae and the bacteria that helps the female to continue over winter. It's a pretty stark place, an orchard. Drops their leaves. It's not like it's like bushland. It's a pretty stark place. So if we can remove that, and you will visually see it, if we can slash it, remove it, get some chickens, grab a pig, whatever works to clean that orchard floor is the key. And then monitoring. Now, they say that the flies do go away over winter. And later in my workshop, you'll see that I've got a delta trap base that has the overwintering population of a male fruit fly in that particular orchard. So continuing to monitor, even continue to trapping, even if you just exclusively, just continue, put those baits out there, pots, whatever works for you, just to keep them going and observe the weather, because as Colin said, we have had a particularly wet season, and yes, and then check your equipment, because so often at the start of the season, when it's action stations, people's equipment are not ready, and so they've missed a couple of days just getting their equipment ready to go. So that's a really good winter job to do.
Do you mean equipment as in the traps?
Bait spray equipment.
Okay. Oh, right.
Yeah, and even your traps. You want to make sure you've got enough traps. They're a great trap. All traps are good, but they do deteriorate and they can get broken in normal practices. So check your traps. Make sure your traps are all beautiful. Okay. We'll move over to the fruit set and fruit fill. So again, prevention is a good key. We're looking at trapping, continue trapping, and that's what we'll say all the way through. Trap. And slash after thinning, because it's not really that they're going to go to that young fruit, but you do want to get into that habit, because sometimes some are thin, some people will go through and take off their damaged fruit as the season progresses. And if you get into that habit of slashing that fruit, then when you put in an almost ripe fruit on the ground, you will come and slash it, because that will become your habit to do. It's a good thing. And then we're going to monitor. So fruit fill, so at fruit set, if the fruit's not attractive to a fruit fly, but as we move over to fruit fill, then the fruit does become attractive. So last year, I did have fruit fly infest green nectarines. That's how high the numbers were. So they say, oh, well, only ripe fruit. When those numbers are so huge, that female is going to go anywhere, because they want to lay. Just like us, we can't wait. And then bait spray as needed. If your numbers start to rise, then you can easily come through and have a bait spray, bring the numbers back down. Doesn't mean you have to begin your bait spraying program religiously, but observe your traps. And this is where you get that integrated control. Observe your traps. Okay, we're catching, we're warm, we're going to have a bait spray, we're still warm, we're going to have a bait spray. We're cool. Okay, we're going to pull it back a bit. So this is that biorational choices. Because Colin and I are blind and we can't see our things. I'm sorry for turning away. Now coming to pre-harvest, so the 6 weeks out rationale that people are talking about, begin your bait spray program. Don't think you're okay. Just because they're not coming to your traps does not mean that they are not present. They find your fruit far more attractive than those traps. So they're coming, you may not catch. And when your numbers are flying in, and it only takes one female to get, as you saw with those numbers, it only takes one female to get past your grid. We can't put a wall up as much as I would love to and say thou shall not pass. It's impossible. So just, spray and continue to watch your fruits. I'll show you some really awesome nuggets later. And it's all pretty, and then it's all pretty self-explanatory. It starts to taper off. We'll move on to an example of, and this is data that was caught in 2017. I have sort of tweaked it a bit to make it a bit more clear for you to read. So it's not true numbers, but it is based off those numbers. So there might be out, 5 or 10 flies here or there. So we're starting early with our first crop, which is apricots. I don't like apricots anyway, but we're starting with the apricots. And then so PH means post-harvest. So the apricots are getting picked. And then people are busy, they go, oh, okay, apricots are done, I'm going to move over to here. But they're forgetting that they need to continue their program in that block, because the post-harvest data, so all the fruit is off the tree, but we're still catching. Okay, so we're still catching flies. So all that fruit is gone, block's done, but we're still catching flies. And then looking at peaches, we start catching the flies because they're moving from the apricots into the peaches, and we're catching flies. And then fruit gets picked. We've got a high amount of numbers, hopefully good fruit, but it's still catching, and it will continue to catch all the way through to that farm is empty. There's not a piece of fruit hopefully left on that farm. We will still catch numbers on that farm, and we still did. And then as you see, plums, and then as you see, it starts to go bonkers in pairs. It just goes haywire. So we've got this these lovely Williams pears that come in first, really juicy, really sweet. They use it to make Coca-Cola and all sorts of business. It's lovely pear. It's not really. And then we've got Packham. So we've got this really long window of pear picking. And then we've got the apples that come next. So by the time we get to the apples, it's just gangbusters. And then people go, oh, that's it, season's done, I'm going to walk away. Job's done. The numbers just go through the roof, as you will see on that card. The numbers just go crazy, and people do stop, or in the GV, commonly I should say my people, the GV does tend to stop spraying after that block is finished because they're busy and they're moving to the next one. But if you can continue that bait spray program, and because they, as Colin said, they love the urban areas, and the difference here to there is we've got lots of little satellite towns and lots of little urban areas. Isn't it awesome? So cool, I love this bug. So the movement from host to host in pictures, really simply, as Colin said, the first one we get is the locusts. That's the first one right up the top there. Pretty insignificant, doesn't seem like much. One tree here or there, no one's really talking about it. This starts to happen November-ish, bubbling away. And then people's gardens and tomatoes start to get hit. And then we start to, people start talking, and the gun gets fired, boom. But by then, it's in our apricots. And it's in our apricots on farm, which is really sad. And then goes over to our plums. And then, boom, by the time we get to the apples. Has Colin told you you can make them jump? Anyway, you can make them jump. It hasn't. So where are we? Where am I? Here. Okay. So luckily our action, when we're talking about the movement through areas and that overwintering things that can happen. So we're saying that orchards are quite stark in winter, but an abandoned orchard like this has lots of places for them to shelter. Lots and lots of places for them to shelter, and then to just bunny hop out. Now, this farm is a real actual farm. It's on a corner of a main road, and it's probably a 2-hectare farm that has been abandoned now for, I would say, 5 years. And he has, or they, nobody can find the owner, has 6 or 7 abutting, is that the word I'm looking for? They are right next to it, yeah. Farms right next to him, and this is just a breeding ground. And so this is where the action groups really come into play, because well, for us in the GV, luckily there was funding to remove farms like this, but that funding needed to be accessed by the farmer. So we couldn't just go and find this man and say, hey, we need you to do this. It doesn't work like that. The farmer or the ex-farmer or the retired farmer needed to have that conscience and say, I'm going to apply for this. There was still some cost to them. It wasn't free, but you know, they needed to have that social conscience to help the industry. Yeah, and look, situations like that, like the one I just discussed, so difficult to control. And one of my jobs is to try and get them to stop pointing fingers at each other, because it's not you, it's not you, it's not him, it's here. Yes, okay. So 2019 and 2021, Q-fly is still an issue in the Goulburn Valley. It is, it's an issue, and it's this seasonal variant that we have. We had a couple of dry summers. People were like, oh, fruit fly's gone now, this is great. And it was a good season. It was a dry season. There was minimal damage to the fruit. It was pretty good. Our control measures worked very, very well. Then we had 2019. And as I said, I got maggots on the tree in November. And then it was just compounding this rolling pain and suffering. Because you take it personally as a crop protectant. You take it personally, like, you know, I'm in this industry, as I said, I'm with Fruit Growers Victoria, and so this is the industry that we love and that I love and that I'm sure you guys love too. I love it. And we did have some complacency as well. Like I said, farmers thought that it was done. We had control. My control measure is working. I'm doing this. I'm good. And then we had a season where a lot of wet came in, and it also became that mixed messaging where, you know, you have one advisor saying this, one advisor saying that, some advisors going, well, it's not that big of a deal in their particular area, but it may be in that particular area because the GV is a big place, and we have pockets of growing, which is, you know, a bit like Harcourt Bendigo. You know, they're two different growing climates, believe it or not, but they're only 20 minutes apart, but they're two different growing climates. So we have the same thing. Farm labour shortages. This is such a big one. It really is a big one. And with the fruit fly, as much as there was complacency and as much as there was mixed messaging, the farm labour shortages definitely helped cause this problem or exacerbate the problem. So we have a couple of commodities, and you put your money into your most valuable crop, or you put your time into your most valuable crop. So we've got apricots, which go to the cannery to make jam, but nobody likes anyway. Or we've got cherries, that all coming on at the same time, that everybody loves, everybody wants, high value. We've got these coming on at the same time, but we've got a reduced workforce. Well, where are you going to send your pickers? You're going to send them to the cherries. And so the apricots got neglected. And there's no blame in that. I would too. You know, basically at the end of the day, it comes down to the bottom line. We're in it to make money. As much as we have our ethical systems in our hearts and our beliefs, we're still in it to make money. So farm labour shortages are only going to get worse, sadly. Yeah,
another minute. Yeah.
Sorry, that's like heartfelt thing. And then we had reduced funding for action groups as well. So there was the action group, the Goulburn Murray Action Group, for Fruit Fly Action Group, and also the Yarra Valley Action Group and the Riverina. And they've got these great coordinators that are doing a fantastic job, Bron Cole and Ross Aberfield, and Deirdre still, yeah, and Deirdre, yep, fantastic. They're really doing a great job, but they have to fight for their money. They've got no continuity. They've got, you know, and so this action group funding is a difficult thing, and they can only do so much. They have their hands tied. I'm lucky, I can go a bit rogue and, you know, say what I feel and say by the passion, whereas they are restricted to the script. But get them behind the camera, and they're great. They're fantastic. Don't say I said that. So here we're looking at, we're moving on what's happening in the Goulburn Valley now. So we do have a greater understanding of Queensland fruit fly. We do know now more with Colin's help and with Andrew Jessup's help, and also with having these opportunities to be part of their trials and really understanding the movements of fruit fly within our systems has been great. So there's a really good understanding. Though the other day, I'm going to chuck in a quick anecdote. The other day, Wednesday, in fact, I got a phone call from a gentleman who was asking me about fruit fly and what he can do to stop it. I was trying to explain how it, well, it does this and it does that, because I love to chat. And he said, no, it lives in the ground. He said, oh, I think I need to talk to a professional. Okay, I'll get the boss for you. Which was awesome because I got to flip past that headache, because once upon a time I would have tried. And like I said, I'm jaded now. I don't have time for that. Yeah, I got better things to do. There's coffee and cake and a smoko room. And the beast is tricky. It's a tricky beast. It is a tricky beast. They're an opportunistic thing. They've got all and we can't put our human emotions on it either, because you have to sometimes you try and think, well, this is my enemy and how am I going to battle it? And so we're thinking like mammals, and this thing's an insect. So we do sort of need to shift our thinking about how we're going to combat it. And there's some excitement at the time when we first started in the GV, there was no real predator that we could say, okay, well, this is the predator. But luckily, with all this beautiful research and the oodles of money that's being poured into it, there's more and more work being done on what predators are available for fruit fly, which is fantastic for us that run these IPDM systems. Really good. And as Colin said, it's not going away, and all we can do is manage it. There's no eradication. It's just management. And also stay in touch and stay informed and call other areas. Call other areas. I mean, I was so glad when Ingrid called me. I'm like, yay! Someone to talk fruit fly about. But also, I was really wanting to get up here with you guys and help you and let you know it's okay. We've all got it. So let's all just work together and do our best. There is no shame. And thank you.
Time for maybe 3 questions, I reckon. Yes, Paula, hi.
Hi. When you talk about bait sprays, like large production, commercial situation, what kind of chemicals or active ingredients are you talking about?
Yeah.
Is there 1 or 2 in particular?
So thank you, Paula. The question was, what is our standard chemical? What do we use? Sorry, Paul, I'm just going through it. It's a little bit loaded. There is chemistry that is registered, and a lot of chemistry needs to, and with the AVPMA, which is the Australian Veterinary Medicine Pesticide Association, there is legalities when it comes to chemicals. There's many legalities when it comes to chemicals, and part of that is to do with food safety and also the user safety. So that's my disclaimer there. Okay, do not die. So the chemistry that is commonly used is Meldicin. It has a quick impact. It does come with its own, and all chemistry comes with its own restrictions. So chemistry, the Phyphonon is one of your trade names. Meldicin, malathion, which I don't think is available anymore. They're very good. They're very user-friendly. They're semi-toxic. They have a caution label rather than a poison label, which is great. And it has a minimal IPM impact if you're using it in that capacity. It has a very short lifespan. It has a short lifespan. So if we're talking about best use of it, Colin was saying when they wake up in the morning, they're hungry, they want to feed. Well, if you spray that of an evening, it will still be there and present and active. So when they wake up in the morning and they want to feed, they're going to eat it first. That's going to be, oh, great, easy food. And they're going to eat that. Then you have others, and it's a cheap option. Then you have others, and there's many. Things like Samurai has a long tail. It will hang around for a very long time. It has a quite high impact, and it is IPM impact, and it also is under the poison schedule, I believe. So you have to have a farm chemical users card to be able to use that one. Then for human health, we have a product for human safety and human health, and the an option that a lot of people are using for the softer approach is a derivative of the wasp venom, which is the spinosad, or this is called Daligan, it's called Spinatorum. So it's a synthetic form of the spinosad. It again also has quite a short lifespan, but it is also effective. When we go through the workshop, I'm more than happy to go through it with you a lot more.
Katie, when you were talking about slashing as a management tool, is that just for slashing fruit, or is there an advantage in, like, is long grass a potential habitat, or it's just to slash?
Yeah, so this is where we were talking about IPDM programs getting. Sorry, sorry, Katie. Katie asked about the slashing, whether it's a continual thing, or whether long grass becomes a habitat, or is it just at that time there. So this is where the IPDM, and I'll speak to that now. This is where the IPDM systems get thrown out the window, because we call it an inter-row habitat. It's a nursery for our predatory insects. Our wasps move up and move down. It's also a place for them to be safe. And then when we're talking about an incursion of fruit fly, then the standard practice and the written down practice and the practice that's coming out of the research and the manuals is to try and make it bare, because that solarizes the ground, minimizes the it goes, throw it out the window. It solarizes the ground, it minimizes the habitat for it, and yeah, so I prefer not to slash given the choice. So it would be timed slashing. So because we love a good intro. People think they're weeds, I think they're food for friends. So at that time of fruit thinning, at that time of crop cleanliness, that would be the times that you would look to slash. And you can, if you have a slasher that you can adjust the arms on, that not everybody's that cashed up, but if you do have a slasher that you can adjust the arms on, then you can just slash along that tree line and just clean that tree line, because the fruit doesn't drop over there. The maggot does fling out, that's true, but they're generally going to drop down.
And just on the predator insects, you just mentioned predator wasps. Can you tell us anything else about fruit-like predator?
Okay, Katie asked about what predators are out there. There's someone here called Haiti, who is about to be my new best friend. If you don't mind, I do know that there's work that's being done out of the department by 2 PhD students, which is fantastic. One is on wasps, which I am not familiar with, I'm sorry. And the other one is on a fungus, which will be great, because that is something that can continually be applied. I think that's going to be one of those watch this space. Yeah, which is great. It's exciting to hear. I've got a theory, if you don't mind me saying. So evolution is one of the things, but Queensland Fruit Fly has bunny hopped its way down from Queensland. So I'm sure in Queensland there's oodles of predators for it. It's in Victoria now and has been for less than 100 years. So that evolution just needs time to catch up, and for predators to say, hey, this is food, we can eat this and not die. So I think it's a watch this space. Thanks for the question though, because I was able to go, oh, that's my person.
Great, all right. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Very much great information. And finally, we've got Terry Willis, who is going to talk to us about what's been happening locally and where he thinks we need to be going. I'm sure he's got heaps of ideas about that. Okay, thanks, Terry.
So just stand here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, they can see you.
Hi everyone. I don't have a slideshow, so it's on here, unfortunately. Didn't get around to that. So look, I live about 2 k's down the road here, so I'm a Harcourt local. I've been here for about 8 years now. Before that, I lived up in Tocumwal for 2 years. That was in 2011. And I started getting into fruit and veggie growing up there. The first year was okay, and the primary industries would come in and just put bait on the trees. They'd leave a little note in the letterbox, and they'd be on their way, and we'd be like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then the second year they stopped that in Tokemore, and I couldn't grow tomatoes, capsicums. I had to strip all 5 fruit trees. Basically couldn't grow anything. And Tokemore, as people know, up that way is overrun with fruit flies. So, and then when I came down here, I got involved with Harcourt Valley Land Care. A grant opportunity came up through Victorian government for $5,000, and so I sort of knew that they were coming down from Bendigo, or they were in Bendigo. So we came up with, we applied for that and came up with the Fruit Fly Action Plan. Came out of that. There it is there. Came out of that grant funding. Now it, yeah, it was extensively. There's lots of people in the room, or 2 or 3, that were involved in extensive engagement to come up with that plan. It was good timing because at that stage there was undocumented cases of fruit fly in Harcourt, but none, we didn't have a confirmed case, which happened a year after the fruit fly plan happened. So it was really good timing for the area. We were on the front foot, and that enabled us to put a lot of things in place ready for when it did come. So what the key thing the group has done is we've built a lot of community awareness, and we've also engaged Mount Alexander Shire to share our goals with the fruit fly plan. Now, Ingrid asked me 3 questions, so that's going to be my theme. I'm going to answer those questions. The information I'm going to give you is based on my personal experiences of 5 years. I'm not trained in any way. It's just purely passion, engagement, and just observation. So the first question was, why has Queensland fruit fly become such an issue in the area? So yes, the slow march south has happened, and we were the next shire in line to get hit by a fruit fly. So it's just, it's coming our way anyway. Climate warming, climate change, great conditions down here, because as Colin has mentioned, they love stone fruit. And so we sort of we've got this perfect environment. We've got tons of fruit trees everywhere. If you go to houses in Brisbane, there's not that many fruit trees in backyards. So there might be mangoes, stuff like that, but down here there's stone fruit everywhere. So it's a perfect place for them. My dad lives in northern New South Wales, and so I'm going up there talking about fruit fly, and he's like, "Oh no, we've got it. Yeah, no, it's just in that tree, the guavas." And he goes, "It only affects them. Doesn't affect anything else." I said, "Where do you go to straight?" Don't worry about it. So obviously there's predators up there. It's in check. It'll only hit one, and he knows it hits the guavas, doesn't hit anything else. And it doesn't seem to be a big issue for those backyard growers up there. There's also large fruit growing industries in the area as well. So that's going to be an issue as well, because it's obviously more food for fruit fly. And then there's the other issue of the Victorian government and their lack or inadequacy of too little too late, I reckon. Look, they've got to spend a lot of money on a lot of issues, a lot of pest issues, but I think they sort of missed it, and it's widespread now. So and also I think that leads into there hasn't been enough preemptive striking for communities that are about to get hit by fruit fly. So it's so what's it? 2017, 2018. Talking about fruit fly, and then people in Castlemaine are going like, "Oh, it's a Bendigo, is it really? Wow, I thought we were fine in here because we're super cold. Frosts are going to control it." But no. So even the message wasn't even getting through to people further down the line that we're going to get hit. So that's basically why it's an issue in the area. Strategies. So the document, the fruit fly plan, happy to say that it didn't collect dust. It actually is a great working document, and I reckon about 95% of things in that document we've ticked off. And that's purely just with some volunteers, about $40,000 in funding all up over the course of 5 years. And so we've achieved lots of stuff, which I'll talk about later. So I think strategies, I think also we're lucky to have lots of community champions. So fruit flies are one of these strange things. People become very passionate about it. It's a weird thing, and people latch onto it and they make it their little thing. So there's Kate, there's me, there's now Ingrid, Katie. There's lots in the room, and there's also people in Castlemaine in the community which have just taken it on board. They're going to fight this thing. So that's really important that we've got these people as well out there in the wider community. Nicole, Porter. And so, yeah, that's strategies. So handy to refer to a slide, but I'll just over here. Yeah, so there's lots of, oh no, it's the wrong page. So what we've done so far is with the group, and these are talking about the strategies that.
The strategy actually is in that yellow folder there too. You've got Colin, so if you can have a bit of a look while you're talking if you want, Terry.
So this is right. So some of the things we've done is we developed the emergency outbreak plan. So what we found is when we first got fruit fly in Harcourt, we were like, okay, well, what do we do now? Because there wasn't anything out there as far. I couldn't find anything that said, right, do this, do that. So we developed the emergency outbreak plan. I don't know if there's anything out there like it. It's now sort of gone past, it's relevant, but it's because we developed such a big, wider, we had a 20 grid, consulting with Colin, a 20 grid trap system to really intensify on one area. But we found that there's so many incursions with fruit fly now that we just have to sort of still use it, it's still relevant, but I think that the way the trapping grid is now sort of being condensed. So maybe I'm advising the council like six traps they can get out to. Because if we had these big boxes that had 20 traps and all that sort of stuff, it's not practical anymore because it's spread so far. But this is a fantastic document and people take it away. People in Maryborough were fronting up to their councils with it. Darebin Council in Melbourne have taken it and used it. So that's one of our achievements.
Where do we get a copy?
I've got some right in the box. We can go online. We can look online as well. We've given away about 325 male monitoring traps across the Shire. We've also got a database of where they are and a map. We've partnered up with Mount Alexander Shire to change and adapt the messaging so that they've now developed two fruit fly pages that just gives clearer information and two dedicated pages on the website that people can go to as a first place of call, as opposed to ringing up and going, you know, I get people front round to the school I work with little bottles and jars of things and go, oh, is this it? And I'm like, yeah, well, yes and no, but you know, look on the website. Blah, blah, blah. So that's been really important, pushing them. Also, they've been really proactive with their community awareness stuff. They've been super helpful. Like whenever I sort of push them or ask them, they've always fronted up. And they've also got the Shape platform. There's an interactive fruit fly map now that you can put a little pin to where if you've had a case, which is really good as well. What else are we doing? We've removed a whole lot of rogue fruit trees in Harcourt along McIver Road. That was about $20,000 grant to do that. We've also just recently completed a we've mapped the whole of Harcourt with any of the remaining roadside fruit trees. So we can give that to the council and they can go forward and put that in their maintenance program. The roadside fruit trees is orchardists. When we did the engagement in the fruit fly plan, that was one of the biggest things they were on about, was the roadside fruit trees. So we're dealing with that as well. And we've run about 10 community events over that course of time. So lots of stuff. You know, I think that we've really achieved a lot in such a little time and with hardly any money. My dream is to have a fruit fly officer in the council.
Yeah.
Just one person, even if it's 1 day a week role. And I think every shire should have one of those.
Yeah.
That's where I think the funding should go, because they form a really key part in the whole puzzle, because they've got all the local, they've got the comms, they've got the local knowledge, they've got all the networks, and it's a big part. And Mount Alexander Shire has really stepped up there, so that's been good, fantastic. Yeah, so but I think the best strategy would be if more groups and more people, different people get involved with newer and different ideas, because I find that I've got my own little set things. But, you know, like this workshop today, everyone getting together with retail, orchardists all coming together, home gardeners, it's really good to see. So they'll form little groups and people go off. Where do we focus in the future? It's a very big question. I'd personally not like to be here. I've got much better things to do than talk about fruit fly, but, you know, it's here, it's going to be here in the future. We're going to have it. We're not going to be able to, well, who knows? But we've got to live with it. So we've got to deal with it. On a broader focus would be fruit fly awareness in the towns. So the battles fought in the towns and won in the towns is up in GV. It's sort of correct me if I'm wrong, it lives in town and repopulates the orchards on the outskirts of town. So I think sometimes we've concentrated on orchards a lot, and whenever I talk to media, they always want to know what the orchards think about things, how they're going, and it's like, well, actually, it's probably the towns that are the most important thing. Orchardists, I feel, can sort of deal with it on their own turf. They're pretty good at that. Well, they are very good at that. Whereas the towns, fruit trees everywhere, renters, landlords, elderly people, it's all just a hodgepodge of a breeding ground for that. So I reckon that focusing on the towns is a really good thing. And that scenario can happen in Harcourt. I mean, Harcourt is going to get bigger and bigger. It's going to get, what, triple in size? It is.
Yeah, it is definitely.
Yeah, it's been deemed a high growth area. So it's going to get bigger and bigger. But yeah, if we can control it in the towns, as in most of the cases this year were in town. So if we can control it in there, then we've got a better chance of the orchards around it. I also feel that we need to rethink sharing of fruit. I don't say I want to stop it altogether, but I think that a lot of the fruit fly has been spread around town and in the Shire from fruit being shared. Now, I know everyone wants to, when you've got an abundance of food and, you know, you want to share it, you want to give it away, but there's been cases where people have known they've had fruit fly and then still got it, they can't let go of it and they still got to share it with someone. It's like, oh. And so it spreads around and that's what goes on. And there's also someone that I met, so I routinely go around to people's houses and help them out, identify fruit fly and then give them traps. One lady said, I said, oh yeah, it's in the plums. She said, oh, plums. She said, oh yeah, that's right. I gave them to my grandkids and they went down to the local cricket final and she said, yeah, they came back and said there was maggots in there and they just chucked them down there at the ground. So I was like, not mentioning the cricket ground, but you know, that this is the sort of sharing of fruit, and I think there's education around being able to identify and taking strong considerations about when you're going to share it, or if you're going to share it. but there's places like Bendigo Food Share. They have to deal with this every day. Food's coming in, fruit's coming in from backyard growers, and yeah, they've got protocols there of dealing with that. That seems to be working. Nicole Porter from Bendigo Community Fruit, she's got to deal with that all the time. So they're actually harvesting fruit in Bendigo from under nets, and it's, you know, it's working. So there is, we are able to share, but I think we just got to rethink. And that's, you know, you've got to teach people about this as well. So it's all, so I think community awareness, trap giveaways, media releases are all good, but I don't think it seems to be cutting through to the average punter. So I don't, how do we get over the passionate people, and how do you get over to the average Joe, Joette that are in the, you know, out there just trying to do their thing, and they've got a fruit tree in the backyard, it's going big and they drops all over the ground. How do we get the message through them? And also I think messaging around fruit fly, it's extremely complex, and like there's so much documentation on it, it's so studied, it's just insane sometimes when you try to break it down to a really simple form to explain to someone fruit fly. And then when you even, Colin, explaining a male and fruit fly, a male and a female trap to people, that sends people into a spin. They're like, what? There's two different traps. And then it's like, so people, it's really hard message to get through. So I think the main focus, this is what I think we should do, is not concentrate on the fly, but concentrate on the tree or the fruiting vegetables. So to flip it a bit, instead of we spend a lot of time thinking about the fly is the problem, but the cause of the problem is because we've got fruit flies in our backyard. We don't have fruit flies or fruiting vegetables, we don't have fruit flies. So I think we need to flip it a bit, and we need to push the message that if you own a fruit tree, whether it's on council land, orchards, backyards, yeah, there's a responsibility to the community when you own a fruit tree. So you need to manage it. You need to look after it. It's not just a thing you can just leave there and forget about it. And so what does fruit fly tree responsibility look like? So it's a lot of things that we've already talked about today. It's that message, but there's also, oh, sorry, Mel.
Oh, it's okay.
Let's go through them. Reducing the size of trees so they're a manageable height, so you can get a net on top. Netting trees so that fruit fly can't get in there. Removing larger ones or unproductive ones, or rogue fruit trees on the sides of roads. I know people love their free fruit, but you know, at the end of the day, if that's one tree, and I'll give the example Colin gave me about the walnut tree. There was a walnut tree in a community, whereabouts, Colin? Tomorrow. And they've done all this stuff around town, and I'm going to paraphrase. And there was one, they kept on getting infected. They couldn't work out where it was coming from. They finally worked out that it was from a walnut tree. It was kept on reinfecting the town. Oh, so they chopped down the walnut tree, and then it didn't disappear, but it reduced. Yeah, so that's that one tree that was, you know, neglected in an area that can be the host tree that repopulates the whole area. Talking to your neighbour, you know, over the fence. We've got a tree on the fence line. What are we going to do about it? I can come over and help you out. Landlords and renters, that's probably one of these big ones. Trying to get them to cooperate to manage fruit trees on the property. Community and relatives helping out elderly people, because that's one of the main things. Even, you know, people can't pick the fruit off the ground. So hygiene, again, one of the main things as well. Getting the council to map all their trees, fruit trees in the Shire. It's a big job, but you know, that's their responsibility. It's their turf. You know, are we going to get rid of that one, or are we going to keep that one? Can we get local communities to adopt the tree and manage the tree, or pick up the fruit off the ground? Sharing fruit responsibly. putting up a monitoring trap, another one. Yeah, and also transparency too. I think is another big one. So, you know, it's not. You know, you don't want to be the person in the village that introduced Queensland Fruit Fly, and that's when you go and visit local people. They get very scared about mentioning. I'll say, can I sort of put a dot on the map where it's that? Oh, no, I don't really want to know. Or can I talk to your neighbours around you? No, I don't really want to. No, I'll just try and handle it here. So it's great that, you know, on this property, there's been a really clear transparency, which is great. And it's just, okay, yes, we've got it. We're going to deal with it. We're going to, you know, I think that's really important too. And my last bit, we've got time still?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right. The benefits of fruit fly.
Oh, right. I was trying to think of some.
So, yeah, you got to, in the world of doom and gloom, you've got to have some sort of hope.
Yeah.
So I've thought about this and I thought, okay, what's the benefits? So the benefits of fruit fly are that you appreciate your fruit trees more because of the value they give to you in your lives. There's community connection through fruit fly. So if you've got fruit fly, you're going to have to talk to your neighbours, and then you might form a little band of warriors within the neighbourhood that want to fight fruit fly. And that's just, you know, you're talking to maybe a neighbour you didn't ever talk to over the fence. Now you've got something in common, fruit fly. There'll be less waste of fruit, because when you start to, you know, when fruit becomes something special or appreciated, you want to keep more of it. You'll have a healthier tree, which means you'll have less wastage as well. People will learn to preserve a bit more as opposed to letting it fall on the ground. And as Nicole Bronwyn Cole said, the best fruit is, you know, you pick it before it drops on the ground. It's the way to prevent fruit fly and hygiene. So just eat it on the tree when it's ripe. I think, yeah, and a healthier, more productive fruit system. So there are benefits to fruit fly. That's it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you take any questions about Shire stuff? Not really. I can do technical, but I don't really want to. Yes.
I'm in Tooten.
Yep.
And we're on a side road off the Pyrenees.
Yep.
And the property coming up to our place has got, on the side of the road, and always has had,
Yep.
well before these people owned it, blackberries.
Yep.
The little plums.
Yep.
that fall
Prunus. Yep.
And pear trees.
Yep.
And nobody ever picks them.
Yep.
And it goes into the creek.
So this is on the
And it
side of
might
the
be-
road. Yeah. This
I'm
is,
not sure if it's, because there's a creek along there, I'm
Yep.
not sure whether it's, I think it's their side of the boundary rather than the road, but it's right there.
yeah. So the question was, there's some blackberry, a wild prunus, and something else, pears on the side of a property boundary, and what do we do with it? So it's not on your property?
No, not on my
Is it on council property? Is it on the neighbours?
neighbours.
Do you talk to the neighbours?
No, well, I was wondering how to
Oh.
approach them, or do I go to council, or?
Look, if you said to the neighbours, look, can I clean up this, chop it down and get rid of it? They'll probably go, awesome, fantastic.
No, it's a bit big.
Oh, it's a bit big.
It's longer than. the
Oh,
shed.
okay. Yeah, okay, right, yeah. I suppose you could look at the pears probably and leave the other ones. Or the wild prunus. Look, you've got to find out whose land it is. So if it's not on council land or any other government land, then it's between you and the neighbour. So I would be approaching that and coming up with a strategy to how to deal with it. Yeah, it's a tricky one.
You've got the perfect excuse, Kate, because you've just been to a fruit fly workshop.
True.
Yeah.
Yes, and I could get information and say, are you interested?
Yeah.
But I probably need to be a bit pushier than that.
Yeah, well, you know, just there you go.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a negotiation. Looking at it, yeah. Look, I haven't seen the size of it or the extent of it, but yeah. Yes,
I've got two questions from Zoom. Melissa wants to know if it's council responsibility to map fruit trees, and Lucy wants to know if fruit fly play a role in biodiversity and life cycles, other
hold on, I'll do the first question first. Do I have to repeat it? Okay, so the first question again was, is it the responsibility of to map fruit trees? Is it the council's?
And Jess Lawrence from council is actually on the Zoom, I think. So
She might be able to answer.
She might be able to
Look, I think it's beneficial if the council have a they've got register of certain trees, but I think I think they should.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think
Beat around the bush.
they are going to keep going with their mapping,
Yep.
the council. So Jess on the Zoom said she's not there.
I can't, I'm just checking.
Okay. Jess, make yourself known. Yeah.
Well, and sorry, there's one other question on Zoom.
Well, I've got a supplementary one to that
Oh.
one. Have they matched the trees up, the fruit trees on the mount yet?
So the question was from Katie, have they mapped the fruit trees on the mount? No, because that is,
Are they going to?
that's a whole nother discussion with a whole another range of departments, different departments and that. It's been identified, people have walked up there and looked at it and put in a quote to the Mountain Bike Park Committee. And I think, yeah, be headed that way somewhere. But yeah, just got to keep on that. Thanks, Katie. Yes, and the other Zoom question.
The role of fruit fly in biodiversity and life cycles of other insects or ecosystems.
Right, I don't know whether I'm qualified, but look, I'll have a crack. So the question was about fruit fly in ecosystems and how they biodiversity. Yeah, look, I think the question might be around. Some people are not into killing anything and see that it's an insect that has a life and it can be part of and coexist within a broad or diverse biodiverse ecosystem. Look, I think that if it's affecting your fruit and things you eat and it's a food security issue, then I think we've got to deal with it. Yes, thanks. I was sort of flamming around.
Oh, bugger, you were so in pain there. Good job.
Yeah.
Well done, you had a crack. Seriously, it's a hard question. It is a hard question because it is an introduced species. It's not native to Victoria. It is native to Queensland. So there's going to be competition with our native species within Victoria and our native species, our indigenous species within each environment that it goes to. So currently, you can say it's a living being, and it will have its role to play in moving around beneficial bacteria and moving around things, and even this is a man-made construct, these orchards, but even in nature, it has its role of breaking down fallen fruit. So it has a role for sure. We're just waiting to find out what our predators here, and I can't wait to hear about it, but what our predators here, so that we can expand that reason for its existence rather than it be the bane of our existence at the moment. So it's a really good question. It's really loaded. And you're right. I mean, if you're into fruit fly, you're passionate. It's a thing.
Right.
Yes. Can I just say that our sort of approach to that in Grow Great Fruit has always been. Hi. Just to answer that question from a Grow Great Fruit perspective, how we teach that it's about protecting the fruit, not obliterating the insect. So it's not about trying to wipe out any species or any insect, or because you can't, you shouldn't, and you can't. Yeah. It's all about focusing on the strategies that protect your fruit and or your trees from that insect. Yeah, that's how we do it.
Okay.
I know we can keep chatting, but I'm just going to.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Terry. Thanks so much, Terry. Thanks for the practical advice, and thanks too for all of the volunteer work that you've been putting in for the last years. Yeah, it's been awesome. Okay, and now was Jess on the Zoom? Jess Lawrence, no. So she, Jess was going to zoom in to the chat, but we council are mapping occurrences of fruit fly. So if someone does find fruit fly, they can contact Jess Lawrence at council, and she can tell you how to map it. So yeah, I guess that's good that we can do that. Jess Lawrence is the fruit fly person at council. Yeah. Okay, well, we can say goodbye to our Zoom people. Thanks to everyone for listening in. But just before you go, I just wanted to acknowledge, hey, we sent all of the Zoom participants further information page, and Haiti, our local biologist, put that together. So I just wanted to say thanks for doing that, Haiti. Great. Okay. And thank you to Elizabeth and Colin and Terry for coming out here and talking today. It's been a little bit, it's weird talking to people that are wearing masks. That's really weird. And it's also hard doing Zoom and having an audience here, but you guys did an awesome job. And yeah, it's lots to think about for all of us. So thank you. All right, so we're going to yourself a cuppa, and then we'll eat outside so that we can.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Lucy. Thanks a lot. We'll send an email to follow up. Thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. See you, everyone.